بسم الله إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. So we have finished last week. Where were we? Anybody remember? I think we finished it.
The tribes in Medina.
Um, Tribes in Medina. Yes, yeah, we just touched upon that. Yeah, yeah. So and the first covenant we discussed about, which is not really a covenant, but is the first conversion of people from Medina. So there were like 6 people who converted initially, the first year, and that was the 10th year of Dawah. And we discussed and we saw their names. The next year, there were 12 people who came back. So the 6 people who converted to Islam the first year, they went back and they kind of did the dawah, and few more people got converted, and they came back and they told Prophet Sallallahu the next year when they came for Hajj, which is the 11th year now. So there were 10 people from Khazraj and 2 people from Aus. They came back and they met Prophet Sallallahu and said that we have accepted Islam, and the first 6 have actually accepted, and the next 6 they wanted to accept. So out of those 12, 5 are the ones who have come the year before. So the 5 of them are the same as the year before. Out of those 6, 5 came back. The 7 people were new. And we can see that Islam is bringing the Aus and Khazraj together now, because Aus and Khazraj, as we discussed, that they had a long series of battles called the Wars of Bu'ath, and for the first time they are just getting together now. So there is a group coming to accept Islam, which composes of Aus and Khazraj together. And we so what are the Ubadah ibn Samit Razal says that I was one of those who participated in the oath of women, but that's actually this year, which the 12 people said. And why it's called oath of women? Because it has got no political clauses in it, so it just had theological things. That what did the oath say? The oath was that you obey Allah and you pray and be good to the other people and be good to your family and that kind of thing. So there is no political clauses in that oath. There is no political connotation. It was just theology and morality. And so it was like an oath of women, as we saw, to worship Allah and not fornicate, steal, or kill our children. We will live righteous and good lives. So that was basically what the oath is. So nothing political in it. And that's called Baytul Nisa, or the Baytul Aqabah Awwal, the first Baytul Aqabah. And it's also Bayat. Yeah, not Bayat. Bayatul Nisa or Bayatul Aqabah. So at this time, there were no other pillars of Islam were there. So the only thing was there is kalima, there is a salah. So that's what they needed to know. But there is no zakah, there is no fasting, there is no hajj, obviously. So there was nothing was obligatory. So
Hajj already a thing before Islam.
Yeah, but it was not obligatory on Muslims at this time, because they are being persecuted, so they can't really go and do Hajj. They don't own Makkah.
but
would
it
you
was
say
still.
Sorry.
It was, as a concept, it was.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
was still a thing.
It's from the time of Prophet Ibrahim, Hajj was constantly happening throughout. Um, yes, they have made changes, and it was not the same Hajj as started by Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam. But yeah, Hajj as a concept continued even before Islam. The Quraysh were doing Hajj.
So was the obligatory prayer and was the obligatory things, and then you said there's no,
So kalima and salah was the only thing obligatory because salah became obligatory in Isra wal Mi'raj. So we know that. Zakah will become obligatory after the Hijrah. Siyam. And even the first year, it was just an obligatory. It wasn't obligatory. It was just voluntary. And then the second year, it was for the whole month. So initially, before it became the whole month of Ramadan, it was just a few days. Uh, People were just fasting for a few days here and there. And then first year, even the whole of Ramadan, it was voluntary. So it wasn't like everybody has to fast in the whole of month of Ramadan. But from the second year, everybody had to fast. So it was an obligation now. Um, so
Why wasn't it obligatory the first year?
everything came on gradually. So so Prophet ﷺ said that whoever fulfills this, his reward will be with Allah, and whoever falls short, he should repent to Allah, and Allah will forgive you. So it's purely a religious oath. Other than Jabir ibn Abdullah, which was from the last year, the five came back. Jabir ibn Abdullah didn't come back this year. The other seven were Mu'adh ibn al-Haris, Zakwan ibn Abdul Qais, Ubadah bin Samit, Yazid bin Sa'labah, Abbas bin Abadah, and Abdul Haytham bin Tayhan, and Uwain bin Sada. So these were the ones which are the 12 people. So the five which we discussed last week actually. So apart from Jabir bin Abdullah, from those six, the five were the same. So when these 12 converted to Islam, Prophet ﷺ actually chose Musab ibn Umair to go with them to teach them Islam, to teach them how to pray, about the pillars of the Islam and everything about Islam. So basically, Prophet ﷺ appointed a teacher to go with them for dawah purposes and for teaching purposes as well. So Musab went there, and very quickly, in few weeks' time, there are lots of people who accepted Islam, and actually the numbers rose up to about 40 in just few weeks' time. And then Prophet ﷺ actually sent a letter to Medina, according to Ibn Ishaq, which says that he said to start doing Jummah, because there was no Jummah before that. From this, there is some of the scholars have said that there should be 40 is the least number of people for Jummah. So one opinion is that you can't do Jummah unless there are less than 40 people, and that's where they take the evidence from, that the Jummah started when Ansar reached up to the 40 number, and then Prophet ﷺ said, do Jummah. I mean, to be honest, it may be just a coincidence that it was 40, but that's the evidence behind it, or the people who say 40. There are different numbers. Some says the large quantity of number and don't specify any number. Some said 3 at least should be for Jummah, and I think Ahnaf are on that as well, that for Salah you can do Jama'ah with 2 people, but for Jummah you need at least 3 people. But then there are other scholars who say Jama'ah can be done by two people, so can the Jummah be. So if there are two people, one should be a khatib and do khutbah and do Jummah, that's fine. So
Shafi'i you need 40.
yeah, Shafi need 40. Yeah, they say 40, and that's why they take it. Um, and there's a slight difference between that was the Musab ibn Umair who led the first Salah. I think according to the Ibn Ishaq, he was the one who led the first Salah, but then there is a hadith in um, I think Sunan Ibn Majah or Sunan Nisai, one of those. Um, can't remember. So the hadith, it's a Hasan hadith. It says that there was a Sahabi who whenever he would hear the adhan of Jummah, he would start crying and will make dua for Asad ibn Zurara. And his son one day said, "Why you start crying and then you start making dua for Asad ibn Zurara? It's every time you hear the azan for Jummah." And he said, "Well, I do that because he's the first one who led us in Jummah when the letter came." So there is a hadith, it's a Hasan hadith who says about Asad ibn Zurara. So Musab ibn Umayr, there's some evidence that he was the one who led the first, but one of them probably led the Jummah first. And there was Asad ibn Zurara is the one who actually housed Musab ibn Umayr. So Musab was living in his house.
Um, so the Muslims were already praying Jum'ah
There was
in Mecca.
no. So
The
that's
first Jum'ah for
yeah.
Muslims was
Yeah. So that's one of the that was earlier scholars used to quiz their question. That what's the one uh, thing of Islam which the rest of the Ummah did before Prophet himself, and that's the Jummah, because Prophet ﷺ wasn't praying Jummah because there was no Jummah in Mecca. Obviously, it's so much persecution that nobody can do Jummah in Mecca. So he was actually not praying Jummah, and Muslims in Medina they were praying Jummah. Yes.
Were there any prayer, I don't know, rules that weren't set by Allah? So how did they establish the amount of rak'ah you pray in one prayer?
Prophet ﷺ told us.
So that was
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. Prophet ﷺ told us.
So that was from Allah, or that was his own
No,
choice?
that is from Allah.
Okay.
Yeah. So everything Prophet told us is from Allah because he was getting the wahi. Yes, there is. It's true that he was doing ijtihad himself as well.
No, just for the prayer.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It is true that he was doing some ijtihad as well himself, and if Allah didn't like it, Allah corrected it. But mostly, whatever he told us about our deen ourselves, it came from Allah. He's the way he came and he told us.
In Surah Al-Najm, وَمَا يَنْطِقُ عَنِ الْهَوَى.
Yeah.
He doesn't
Say
utter
anything.
anything out of desires. In huwa illa wahyun yuha, it is revelation revealed to him.
Mm.
So whatever he says, it is revelation revealed to him. But it's hadith, not Quran.
So, so these are the 12 people who came this time, and as we said that Musab ibn Umair went with them, and he started preaching to other people, and the number started growing, and it says that by the time the next year came, it is almost 300 people who have accepted Islam. There is no household in Medina where there were no Muslims. So in every block of houses, there are some Muslims which were there. So Alhamdulillah, he actually did a lot of dawah, and a lot of people accepted Islam on his hand. There are two main conversions which are very interesting, and which resulted in mass conversion of other people, and those were the up and coming leaders of the Medina people, of the Ansar, or to be Ansar, which will become Ansar in some in a little while. And their name was Usayd ibn Hudayr and Sa'd ibn Mu'adh. So Usayd and Sa'd, they are both young leaders of Khazraj. So they are both Khazraj.
Are they related?
No.
Okay.
So Asad ibn Zurara, who is housing Musab, his cousin is Usayd, and he's told Usayd, and they were both very close friends. Saad and Usayd were close friends. So he told Usayd once was speaking to Saad, and he said, "Well, this man has come from outside, and he's living in my cousin's house, and he is actually uh, kind of brainwashing our people and making them leave their religion and their forefathers' way, and he's making them Muslim, which is basically for them. They are leaving their own religion and becoming something completely different. So if it was not for my cousin, that Saad is my cousin who is housing him, I would have gone and confronted him. But because he's my cousin, I can't really. I feel embarrassed that I have to do it. Why don't you go and do that?" So Usaid sent Saad there's a hadith in the Bukhari that every time I see, no, so who was Usaid? Usaid is later on we will find that there's a hadith in Bukhari that he said, every time I recite Quran, I see some light coming down, and Prophet ﷺ says these are angels who are coming down to listen to your recitation. So this is Usaid. And Sa'd ibn Mu'adh, that's a famous hadith that when he passed away, Allah's arsh shook. So Prophet ﷺ that Allah's arsh has shook because of his death, out of anger. That's how dare they killed Saad. So he was at that level. So they were, as I said, they were both kind of leaders of Khazraj, and they started talking. And Usaid said, "Why don't you go and confront him?" So Saad came, and he, with his sword and everything, and he took his sword out. So Sa'd ibn Zurara said that there is a man coming. If you can manage to convert him, that will actually help us a lot. And he said, "Fine." So Saad came, and they were sitting outside in the garden of Sa'd ibn Zurara, and he started shouting and saying, "How dare you can brainwash our people, and you should leave our city now before I kill you." And Musab ibn Umair, he just was very quiet and listened to everything he has to say, and he said, "Are you finished? Why don't you just sit down and listen to what I have to say? If you like it, that's well enough, well and good. If you don't like it, then I will leave. But you haven't even listened to what I have to say, and you're just being angry for no reason. So why don't you just sit down and listen to first what I have to say, and then if you don't like it, then I will leave." And he said, "Okay." So he sat down, and Musa bin Umair started telling him about the Islam and what Islam is, and how you have to be good with your family, and Islam prohibits us to do lewd things and fornicate and all of those things. And Sa'd ibn Mu'az said, "Yeah, I mean, this all makes sense. This is all very good. How do I accept Islam?" And Musab said, "Go take a bath, come back, and say Ashhadu Allah, say Shahada," and he accepted Islam straight then and there. Yes.
Why are people so when they hear the message, they're always I'm not surprised, impressed, like, oh, this is good, you should be good to your neighbors. Was that not normality then?
No, it wasn't. Number one. The other thing is they were fighting, and the tribal system, as we have been saying, that it was all your tribe is the best, and whatever your tribe has done will go. but there was no morality in terms of their morals. There was no morals to follow. So it was just might is right, animalistic society. So that's so you don't compare the the society of today to that time. Okay, so there was no civilization. They were not a civilized society.
Yeah, plus people are reluctant to change their old ways.
Yeah,
It's like here, you know, if you want to say anything, if you want to say anything about Islam or the message to an atheist, he won't even listen to you. You know, you'll come up with 110 excuses
Yeah.
not to listen. So people are reluctant, often reluctant and scared of losing their tradition, if you like.
Yeah. And your reason, your question is that why they were getting impressed, because it's Allah's message. It has got that ability to impress people. If they don't even
Yeah, but it's
understand,
just common sense.
it makes common sense as well, and it's also because you have to remember that this is because most of us must be reciting Quran to him as well, and Quran has that ability to affect you. I mean, even if you if you make some non-Muslim just listen to Quran, they will get affected. And you must have seen people have done like YouTube videos where they are just randomly selecting people on the streets and just asking them, "Can you listen to this?" And they are really getting affected by just listening to the Quran. So Quran has that ability. If somebody is reading it properly, it will affect people. It will affect the heart.
Do you mean like random people or like people who actually understand Arabic?
I said random people,
Yeah,
and that's
but
what I meant.
how will it affect them if they if like random people?
Because that's
they might
that's
not
the
know
speech
what
of Allah, so that has that effect. It's not an ordinary book. Yeah.
But at the time, he was the Arabic speaking
Yeah.
nation.
At the time it was, but you have to remember, Quran is the only miracle properly. When I say only, there was lots of miracle, but what Allah has said miracle for Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, He said Quran as a miracle. So that's a miracle. Okay, so it's still with us. So we have got a miracle which we can hold in our hand and read and everything. So it's a miracle.
It's like the sound, even though they don't understand. So even non-Muslims, when they hear the adhan being
Yeah.
read in a nice, melodious way, they get impressed by it and how it
Yeah.
sounds, even
And-
though they don't know what it means.
I mean, not necessarily just the melody, but it just affects your heart. And means I've heard, I haven't seen it myself, that people who reading Quran to very sick people in ICU, and there was a sheikh who was telling that he was doing it for his own relative, and the nurse later on came and said, "Well, what were you doing? Whatever you were singing, can you come and do that again, please?" Because we noticed that all our patients, their observations were all fantastic when you were doing that. So their heart rate came down to normal, and their blood pressure improved, and everything improved. So, and I believe it. It must have happened. I have got no question not to believe it. So yeah, I mean it is a miracle. So Musab converts a good amount of people from yesterday, and in 12th year, sorry, I didn't finish. So Saad came back where he left Usaid, and as soon as Usaid saw him, he said, "This face is not the face of the same man who left me." So he already can see that the Islam has changed his something changed in his face. So he can see that you are not the same person who left me a little while ago. So he didn't tell him that I've converted to Islam. He said, "Well, I tried to speak to him. He didn't listen to me. Why don't you go and speak to your cousin yourself?" And one more thing, he mentioned there is another sub-tribe that they are planning to come and kill him, kill Usaid and Musa. And he wasn't lying. There was somebody who was trying to do that. So that actually kind of put more fuel on the fire. So he said, "No, I will go and do that straight away." So Usaid went and kind of confronted Musab that why are you doing this, and you should leave our city, otherwise I'm just going to kill you. And Musab said to him again the same thing in a very calm way. You haven't even listened to what I have to say. Why don't you sit down, listen to what I have to say? If you don't like, I will go. And Usaid sat down, and same thing happened. He listened to what he has to say, and he got so moved that he said, "How do I accept Islam?" He accepted Islam as well, and then they both came out, and they went to their sub tribe. I can't remember the name of the sub tribe which they were from. They were both leaders of that sub tribe of Khazraj, and Assad said. You all know me, and you all love me. I will not talk to any of you unless you accept Islam. So the only way you can still be able to talk to me if you accept Islam. If you don't accept Islam, basically I am boycotting you. So I've got nothing to do with you guys. And everybody loved him. So the whole of his sub tribe loved him, and they all accepted Islam.
So he blackmailed them into Islam.
No, he didn't blackmail them. He People actually loved him so much they want to please him. Emotional blackmail, you can call it to some extent, but they did it in their with their free will. It's not that if he's not talking to them, it will make any difference to them. It will not make any difference. But because they loved him so much, he was so good to them, they didn't want to kind of disappoint him.
That's even exists in the parliament, the web.
Yeah.
If you don't vote with Boris Johnson,
Yeah.
you're sacked.
You're sacked, you will go away. Yeah. Whip or something.
Yeah.
So there are lots of people who actually accepted Islam straight away after that. Only one person who didn't accept Islam was Usaireen. And Usaireen was the only person from that sub-tribe who didn't accept Islam. So everybody else accepted Islam. So he was the only one left. And he didn't accept Islam till the day of Uhud. And on the morning of Uhud, he was still not a Muslim, and all the Muslims went out to fight. And he said, "Well, I can't really not go and fight. There are people coming to kill my people, and I have to fight with my people." Because he was doing it for tribal reason, not for Islam. For Islam. But he said, "I can't leave my own people behind. So I have to go and defend my city and my people." So he came, and Muslims asked, "Why are you here? You are not a Muslim. You can't fight with us. You go back. We don't need you." So he went back, and then he came back. He said, "No, I need to fight with you. I want to fight with you." So the second time they said no, and then he realized that he has to accept Islam if he wants to fight with them. So he came back and he said, "Well, I've accepted Islam. I am a Muslim now." So they said, "Okay, come on, join us." So if you are a Muslim, then you can join. So the war started after Fajr, and he died before Dhuhr. So he never prayed a single rak'ah, and Prophet ﷺ told us that he has gone to Jannah because he said that haza rajulun amalun kalilun wa ujjira kathiran, something on those lines. So that's the hadith, that he's a man who has done a very little work, but his reward is very big, and he is from Jannah. And yes, he just had one fight, and he just went to Jannah. He is a shaheed directly into Jannah. And Abu Hurairah used to quiz his student, radiallahu anhu, that who's a person who's gone to Jannah without reciting a single rak'ah, without reading a single rak'ah of prayer. So it was Usairi. So he never prayed in his life. He never gave any zakah. He never fasted. He never done anything required for a Muslim to do, and he's gone to Jannah straight away. So
Actually, no, it doesn't matter.
Because he died as a martyr.
he died as a martyr, so martyr goes to Jannah straight away. So he accepted Islam, all the previous sins are gone.
Wait, what?
So as soon as you accept Islam, previous sins are gone. So as you are born now, so you start a new life. So his all sins are forgiven, and then he go and the only thing he does is fighting for the sake of Allah and dying for the sake of Allah. So he's a martyr to go with straight
Do
into.
you mean like the sins are forgiven or like the sins are erased? Like they're not there anymore, they're just there but they've been forgiven?
Well, obviously he's done them, so you can't undo them. But yes, erased. So you start with a clean slate. So once you accept, when somebody accepts Islam, they start with a clean slate. So none of them what they have done previously in their life will be counted. So all of that is gone.
This is the very confusing message for all the terrorists, people who go out there bombing cities and innocent people thinking they're going to end up in Jinnah. So if you look at all the
Yeah,
terrorists,
so,
a lot of them go
Yeah. So we
previous-
have to realize that we have to for the sake of Allah, fighting for the sake of Allah. So it's a just reason. There has to be a just reason, and who they are fighting with, and all of those things come to play. So not just fighting, not any army. Doesn't matter if it's coming um, from a Muslim country or not. Not every fight is the Islamic fight. Okay, so that's we have to remember that. The second thing is, what will be their fate who are dying in those fights, whatever their fights is. Individually, we try not to comment on that because Allah will do justice with them. If their reason for fighting was not just reason, they just lost their life for no reason. So they are not going to get the reward of a shaheed or anything. Probably they will be punished for killing people on the other side. So if their reasons are not right. If their reasons are right, and they are doing it for the right reason, yeah, Allah will give them the ajr of a shaheed. But we are not there to judge them. So either way, we should not judge them.
No,
We can make a general. I can make a general statement, but I won't comment on one particular thing. Yeah.
So I was raising my hand before.
Yes. Yeah.
In the Quran, qatilu means somebody coming to fight you and you fight back. In the Quran, there isn't anything called uqtulu, initiate. So preempted strike or killing is not in the Quran. So when you go to somebody who come and explode himself in Manchester, who was fighting him and he was fighting back? Nobody. He just initiated fight, then there's nothing to do with Islam.
Yeah.
It's his decision to go and kill people, and he's a murderer, and Allah will be
Yeah,
there.
means
There has
it-
to be a battle, that's not
So with that,
what I said is a lot of these
They
people have
twist their
misunderstood.
mind.
That's
Oh, you're
right.
going to Jannah, you get 70 huriya, 70 wives straight away.
That's right. So if you look at a lot of those characters around Europe, especially in France, they got bloody conviction, length of my arm and leg.
Yeah.
Huge amount of
They
sins.
say, oh, all will be erased.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
right. So
You
somebody,
go straight to
somebody
Jannah.
said to them, yeah, if you
I'm
die from
brainwashed, you know,
after,
just
yeah, I mean that's what I'm saying. Means first of all, you have to who's to judge what is the right fight, if it is a just cause or not. It's the scholars of those times. Okay, so not the people, not the army generals, because they would need new recruits. So what the army general is saying makes no sense. The scholars of the time, if they are backing, and I mean all the scholars, or at least the majority of them, not just one scholar, because he could be a very extremist mind as well. So if the majority is backing that fight, then I would say yes, it's a just reason for it. But if you are fighting a fight which has got no justification in Islam, then you are just fighting. That's it. It's got nothing to do with Islam.
You said that when you're a martyr, you go to Islam, you go to
Jannah.
Jannah, straight
Yeah.
away. But it said before that the martyrs are in the bodies of green birds on the chandeliers of Jannah.
Yeah.
So are they enjoying
Not
it now,
not
or are
not
they just
in that
actually?
sense, Jannah. They will have to wait till like everybody else.
Yeah.
But they are not in barzakh as well. They are in barzakh, but their barzakh is that they will be given a body of a bird, and they will be flying around in the Jannah. So they haven't got their actual body, which they will get on the day of judgment. They will get into a human body, which is a different kind of a body, not like this body, but they will get a proper body, and then they will start living in Jannah. But at the moment, they are in a body of a bird flying around in the Jannah.
But they still have the same mental state as a human. They're in the body of a bird, but
They are just a soul,
yeah.
and that's a different dimension we are talking about.
Oh,
So there's not bodies like us, so they are in a different dimension now.
yeah.
Okay?
Would it feel like a long time?
Not necessarily, no. Because there are narrations where they say that when they will wake up, they will say, "Oh, how long you were dead?" And they will say, "Oh, we were just sleeping for a night or maybe a bit longer." So for them, it's just like a night. If you go to sleep, you sleep for an hour or 8 hours. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any difference. You woke up, you won't know how much you have slept, unless you look at the watch.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So same for them. So they are sleeping basically, unless people who are not good and if they are being punished in barzakh, then they will know. So Abu Hurairah said that well, we talked about that. So Musa converted a lot of people. Out of those, 75 came the next year, 12th year, and they sent a message to Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam that, look, we are coming for Hajj, and we want to meet you. So they have already made a plan, and they sent a message. And Musab actually came back for the Hajj, and he told Prophet ﷺ what's been happening, and there were about 300 people. So they were almost the same amount of people as in Makkah. So Prophet ﷺ said that we shall meet at the last night of the Hajj before everyone returns home, and he told them about the space that meet me behind the valley of Aqabah. So that's why it's called Bayat al-Aqabah, because it was done at that place. So Jabir bin Abdullah, one of the famous Ansar who came with the first 6, but he's the one who was missing in the second year when the 12 came. So he was the only one missing. The rest of the 5 did come. So Jabir bin Abdullah says that the Prophet ﷺ stayed for more than 10 years in preaching in Mecca, trying to find support, and then the Quraysh rejected him and asked who would support me so that I can spread the message of my Lord, which we discussed that he was going to different tribes, Kinda and other tribes. He went and he said, who can support me, but nobody actually really supported him until finally Allah guided us to Islam. A group of people from Yathrib accepted, and we believed in the Prophet ﷺ. We recited the Quran until not a single sub-tribe existed except some were Muslims. And then Allah caused us to come together, and we said, for how long will we allow Prophet ﷺ to be repelled from one valley to another outside of Mecca and live in fear? So that's the reason why they sent a message to Prophet ﷺ that we are coming and we want to meet you. And they had already made up their mind that, look, we can't leave Prophet ﷺ like this in Mecca anymore. We will ask him to migrate, and we have to accept him. So so Ka'b ibn Malik also narrates that when we went to Hajj, we hid our Islam from our relatives, and we snuck out of our tents at the night time to meet Prophet ﷺ, because if they knew that they are all Muslims, they will tell Quraysh, and they will probably come and will start fighting with them. So they said that we didn't tell our relatives who came with them for the Hajj. So they secretly left in the middle of the night, came to meet Prophet ﷺ, And eventually Prophet ﷺ came out with his uncle Abbas. So Abbas radiallahu anhu came. He is not a Muslim at this time, and he said, "Oh my nephew, I don't know these people, because he was a tradesman and he used to do a lot of trade journeys and trade with the people of Khazraj, but they were all elders and they are all killed now. So in the war of Boas, they are all killed, and these are all youngsters, which um, uh, Abbas, who's the uncle of Prophet ﷺ, he can't recognize any of them. And he said, "Oh my nephew, I can't recognize any of these people, and I don't feel comfortable. Are you going with them?" Um, because Abbas is thinking that there's no one senior from here. Then Abbas started talking to them, and he was feeling a little bit embarrassed as well. So he's saying that, oh, he's one of the noblemen of Quraysh, and he has a lot of respect in Makkah, and he's respected and he's protected in Makkah, which is not true because his own tribe has disowned him, and he is the protection of Mutam ibn Adi, but he's just trying to sell him in a good way. So Abbas radhiyallahu anhu said, if you can live up to your promise and can protect him, then be it. Otherwise, just leave him as he is, because he is much better here to stay in Makkah than to go with you. And they said, well, you have said enough. Now we don't want to hear from you anymore. We want to hear from Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So they told Abbas that, okay, you have said enough. Now just can you keep quiet, and we want to listen to what Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam has to say. So I mean, we can see that Abbas radhiyallahu anhu clearly not kind of trusting them. So he said, well, these are some youngsters who have come from a different city. How can I just let my nephew go with him? So Prophet ﷺ began by preaching initially, but about the fearing Allah and recited the Quran, and then he said, I shall give you bay'ah in return for Jannah, and then you shall protect me like you should protect one of you. So as you will protect your own tribe member, you should protect me like that. So, and this is called Bay'atul Aqabah. And you have to see that even this, there is just a protection which they have promised, which will come handy later on. So remember, the bay'ah is for protection. Okay, so if somebody comes to harm Prophet ﷺ, they will protect him like they will protect their own people. And the reason why I'm saying that, because Prophet ﷺ will keep on asking on the time of Badr. So he will keep on repeating the question, we want to go and fight, what do you think? And the one Qurayshi will stand up and they will say, yes, we are with you. Prophet ﷺ will ask the same question again. The second Qurayshi will stand up, will say the same. Third Qurayshi will stand up, will say the same thing, that we are with you. But Prophet ﷺ asks again, and then Saad, who is one of the leaders which we have just talked about, he understood, and then he stood out and he said, "Oh Prophet ﷺ, I think you meant by us, Ansar." And then he said, "Yes, we are with you as well," because up till that time there was no offensive. So in Badr, they are going on offensive, so they are going to have a war, to fight with somebody, to attack someone. Up till then, it's all defensive. Yes, we will defend you. We will protect you. So it was all defensive. So there is no offense. But in Badr, it changed to offense. So Prophet ﷺ made sure that the Ansar are up to it and they agree with it. Because in Bay'at al-Aqabah, it's all protection. Al-Bara ibn Marur said that we are experiencing. So Prophet ﷺ, when he said that, Al-Bara ibn Marur stood up and said, we are experiencing the arts of war. This is an easy condition, so we will protect you. No one will be able to touch you. Stretch your hand and we will give you our allegiance. We will give you the bay'ah. Abu al-Haytham, one of the famous Ansar, he's the one who fed the Prophet ﷺ on one day. he had nothing to eat, and he was putting a stone on his stomach and was walking outside because he was feeling so hungry he couldn't go and sit in the house. He was uh, uncomfortable, so he was just walking out in this in the streets of Makkah. He saw Abu Bakr, and he was doing the same thing. He had some stones on his.
Wait,
So
wasn't Abu Bakr a rich man?
not a rich man, but yes, he was a trader. But then he used to give lots of money for the sake of Allah as well. And then they found Umar Radhiyallahu anhu, and he had the same thing. So they all got together and they saw Abu al-Haytham, and Abu al-Haytham said, well, come with me. He took him to his house, and he asked the wife, do you have anything? And she said, well, we have just got one old goat and that's it, nothing else. So he said, well, we have to sacrifice and we have to do the zabiha and feed the Prophet. I can't really see this anymore. And the Prophet ﷺ is walking out with stones on his stomach with his two best companions. So he sacrificed the goat and fed them. So that's that Abu Haytham. And Prophet ﷺ said that we have ties in the Jews. So he said, "O Prophet ﷺ, we have ties with the Jews. So we have got already, we live with them and we have got ties with them. And by accepting Islam, basically we are going to be against them now. So we will leave those ties. Those ties will be gone. So once, but look at his iman. They are only like 300 people, and they're talking about Makkah. That he said that one Allah will give you victory. So he has that iman that Allah will give you victory, because they knew that he's the prophet of Allah. That when Allah will give you victory, will you go back to Makkah and start living with your own people? And the Prophet ﷺ said, in the Arabic, I can't remember, but there's a saying that ad-dam bil-dam wal-hadam bil-hadam. Is that right? So it's my blood is your blood, and my destruction is your destruction, or your destruction is my destruction. Your blood is my blood, and your destruction is my destruction. Basically, we will live and die together. So if we have to put it in English, so that's the closest I can translate it. So, and these are all Qahtani Arabs, as we said the other day. These have come from Yemen. Aus and Khazraj, they are both Yemen. And Prophet ﷺ has actually, there's lots of hadith about the Yemeni people. And one of the hadiths, and he said, the Iman is Yemeni and wisdom is Yemenite. The Prophet ﷺ again then said, you must give the bay'ah that you hear and obey in times of difficulty and ease, and that you spend in the way of Allah, and command the good and forbid the evil, and you speak the truth no matter what, and that you help me when I come to Yasrib, just like you help your family. So that was the bay'ah. That was the clauses. So, and they said, what shall one of the Ansar said, what shall we get in the return? And Prophet ﷺ say, Al-Jannah. So just one word. And before they could embrace, they could come and do the bay'ah, Asad ibn Zurara, who's the one who's housing Musab, he held on to the hand of Prophet ﷺ and stopped him. He pushed it down, and then he spoke to his people that, look, are you sure basically what you are doing? You understand what you are going through? So he's like, oh, people of Joseph, we haven't traveled all this distance, except that we know that this man is prophet of Allah, and once his people expel him, then you will be asking for war. So you know that this will come. And so if you are ready to die, then give him the oath, and realize the best of you will be killed, fathers will lose their son, you will cause death amongst yourself. And if you are prepared, then give him the oath, and if not, stop now, that the perchance that Allah will forgive you. And they said, oh Asad, you have spoken enough, take your hand off, we want to give bay'ah. and then all of them gave bay'ah. And in that 75 people, 73, there's a misprint, were men, and two were women. And obviously Prophet ﷺ took bay'ah from women verbally, because he never touched the women who were not mahram. So he took the verbal bay'ah to women. The rest, they will come and they will put their hand in the hand of Prophet ﷺ and will say the words which the bay'ah we have discussed. And I think that's enough for today. We will inshallah stop here, and we'll continue from here next week. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.